Hi, this is George, and you're watching The Return of the King channel. In April of 2024, the last of 3 eclipses to cross America will appear. The prophet Joel tells us the sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes. Solar eclipses occur on a regular basis, so there has to be something more. In Revelation 22:12 and 13, Jesus says this. He says, "Behold, I am coming soon, and my reward is with me, to repay each one for what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end." The path of the 3 eclipses form the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph, which in the Greek alphabet is the Alpha. The path of the first and last eclipse forms the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the Tav, which in the Greek alphabet is the Omega. The eclipses now appear to be trying to tell us something. But there's more. The intersection of the first and last eclipse occurs in a location known as Little Egypt. Of all the countries in the world, why is the Alpha and the Omega, and now a reference to Egypt, appearing over America? Because America was set up by the Founding Fathers for a very specific purpose. This is one side of the Great Seal of the United States, which can be found on the back of the $1 bill. Contained within the Great Seal is a prophecy of a new world order headed by a one-world leader, the one we call the Antichrist. It was in Egypt where God showed the nations of the world who the most powerful God was, the God of the Hebrews. God took his people out of the most powerful nation in the world at that time, Egypt, by defeating their gods. He then hardened Pharaoh's heart and caused him to pursue the Israelites. God parted the Red Sea, and his people passed through safely to the other side. Pharaoh and his army entered the Red Sea, and then God drowned them. None survived. America is the most powerful nation in the world. And just like in Egypt, where the people of God multiplied into a nation, Christianity grew mightily in a land that serves foreign gods. When the oppression by the Egyptians became severe, God took them out of Egypt. As the opposition to Christianity and its values grows, not just in America, but worldwide, God will take his people out just like he did in Egypt. The principalities and powers that rule over America have been summoned here by a hidden ruling elite. They are the same demonic entities as those that ruled over Egypt, the most powerful nation at that time. These demonic gods who rule the nations at the request of men will be defeated, just as they were in Egypt. Tom Horn, in his book Zenith 2016, goes into great detail as to the purpose of America's founding, to lead the world in the creation of a new world order led by the Antichrist. Speaking of the Great Seal, he says this: "The Great Seal of the United States is a prophecy hidden in plain sight by the Founding Fathers and devotees of Bacon's New Atlantis for more than 200 years, foretelling the return of a terrifying demonic god who seizes control of Earth and the new order of the ages. This supernatural entity was known and feared in ancient times by different names: Apollo, Osiris, and even farther back as Nimrod, whom Masons consider to be the father of their institution. Our escape in Revelation chapter 12 is from the dragon, Satan, and his incarnate son, the Antichrist." Was the United States designed to produce the Antichrist? David Bay of Cutting Edge Ministries believes so. America was designated as the new Atlantis that would lead the world to the Antichrist. The original national bird envisioned by our Masonic leadership in the late 1700s was not the American eagle, but the phoenix bird. This historic fact strongly suggests that at the right moment in world history, with the world entering through the portals of the kingdom of the Antichrist, America might suddenly be immolated in fiery flames, burning to the ashes. Out of these ashes, the new world order would arise. 33rd degree Freemason Manly P. Hall, author of the book The Secret Destiny of America, originally published in 1944, said this about America: "Not only were many of the founders of the United States government Masons, but they received aid from a secret and august body existing in Europe, which helped them to establish this country for a peculiar and particular purpose known only to the initiated few. The Great Seal is the signature of this exalted body, unseen and for the most part unknown, and the unfinished pyramid upon its reverse side is a trestle board, setting forth symbolically the task to the accomplishment of which the United States government was dedicated from the day of its inception. It is 32nd degree Freemasons, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and then Secretary of Agriculture Henry A. Wallace, that made the decision to place the Great Seal of the United States on the dollar bill. It is only the Freemasons who have achieved the title of 32nd or 33rd degree who are involved in the bringing of the New World Order to realization. Those at the 32nd and 33rd degrees of Freemasonry believe that in the Garden of Eden it was the serpent Lucifer who wanted to enlighten Adam and Eve, and it was Yahweh who wanted to keep them in the dark. Their allegiance is to the dragon of Revelation chapter 12. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. This path here is the path of the solar eclipse that occurred in 2017. It occurred 33 days prior to the Revelation 12 sign. It is the 233rd day of the year. It is 133 days prior to the last day of the year. It begins in Oregon, the 33rd state. It ends in Charleston, South Carolina, which is located approximately on the 33rd parallel. Charleston is the location of the first Supreme Council of the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemasons in the United States, called the Mother Lodge of the world. This is the path of the third eclipse, the eclipse of 2024. The location where the two eclipses intersect is known as Little Egypt. The rituals performed by the Freemasons to deify the Antichrist are based on the rituals performed by the Egyptians to deify the pharaohs in ancient Egypt. It was in 1934, 32nd degree Freemasons, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and then Secretary of Agriculture Henry A. Wallace came up with the idea to feature the Great Seal of the United States on the dollar bill. Like 33rd degree Freemason Manly P. Hall, 32nd degree Freemasons FDR and Henry Wallace understood the secret meaning contained within the Great Seal. The idea of using the Great Seal on coinage or currency began with then Secretary of Agriculture Henry A. Wallace in 1934. Wallace got the idea after looking through a State Department publication titled The History of the Seal of the United States. Turning to page 53, I noted the colored reproduction of the reverse side of the seal. The Latin phrase Novus Ordo Seclorum impressed me as meaning the New Deal of the ages. I was struck by the fact that the reverse side of the seal had never been used. Therefore, I took the publication to President Roosevelt and suggested a coin be put out with the obverse and reverse sides of the seal. Roosevelt, as he looked at the colored reproduction of the seal, was first struck with the representation of the all-seeing eye, a Masonic representation of the great architect of the universe. Next, he was impressed with the idea that the foundation for a new order of the ages had been laid in 1776, but that it would be completed only under the eye of the great architect. Roosevelt, like myself, was a 32nd degree Mason. He suggested that the seal be put on the dollar bill rather than a coin and took the matter up with the Secretary of the Treasury. He brought it up in a cabinet meeting and asked James Farley, Postmaster General and a Roman Catholic, if he thought the Catholics would have any objection to the all-seeing eye, which he as a Mason looked on as a Masonic symbol of deity. Farley said no, there would be no objection. When the first draft came back from the Treasury, the obverse eagle side was on the left of the bill as is heraldic practice. Roosevelt insisted that the order be reversed so that the phrase of the United States would be under the obverse side of the seal. Here are FDR's initials, and here is where he requests the switching of the pyramid and the eagle. As high-level Masons, both FDR and Wallace comprehended the esoteric and secret meanings embedded within the Great Seal. Both FDR and Wallace were well acquainted with the teachings of Luciferian Nicholas Roerich, who is an instructor of Madame Blavatsky's Theosophical Secret Doctrine. Madame Blavatsky published a periodical named Lucifer. Within these secret societies, Lucifer is perceived as an angel of light. According to their beliefs, it was Lucifer in the Garden of Eden who enlightened Adam and Eve, enabling them to open their eyes and become like gods. In contrast, Jehovah is considered evil and is believed to want to keep mankind in the darkness. Right here on the cover of the magazine, she says, "The light bearer is the morning star, or Lucifer." Wallace and Roosevelt, both 32nd degree Masons, comprehended the concealed prophecy within the Great Seal. This letter, penned to Guru Roerich on March 12, 1933, by the future Vice President Wallace, vividly illustrates that understanding. "Dear Guru, I have been thinking of you holding the casket, the sacred, most precious casket, and I have thought of the new country going forward to meet the 7 stars under the sign of the 3 stars, and I have thought of the admonition, await the stone. We await the stone, and we welcome you again to this glorious land of destiny, clouded though it may be with strange, fumbling fears. Who shall hold up the compelling vision to those who wander in darkness? In answer to this question, we again welcome you to drive out depression, to drive out fear. And so I await your convenience, prepared to do what I am to do. The stone they eagerly await is the capstone of the Great Pyramid, the Savior of the world, whose arrival will metaphorically complete the pyramid and initiate the new world order. The 7 stars are the Pleiades, and the 3 stars the belt of Orion, of which the 3 pyramids of Giza align. In my latest video, I talked about the story of the rapture that appears in the heavens between April 8th and the 10th. The eclipse occurs on April 8th. Between the 8th and the 10th, we see a pictographic story of the great escape from the dragon. On the following day, April 11th, the story completes when the moon enters the Pleiades, signaling the coming of the Antichrist. The moon passes near the Pleiades every month, so what happens on the 11th by itself doesn't really mean much. It's the combination of what occurs in the days previous that gives us a complete story. The story of the pre-tribulation rapture, our escape from the dragon Satan and his incarnate son, the Antichrist. Every object in our solar system except Pluto is in the constellations of the rapture and coming tribulation. Plus, a comet will appear in the sky with the eclipse. On the 3rd day from the eclipse, there's a very complete pictographic story of the rapture in the heavens. I'll talk about this in more detail later. The ancient Jewish rabbis believed the sun represented God, whom we cannot look at, and the moon the Messiah. Just as the moon reflects the light of the sun, in the Messiah we see a reflection of God. The day you see here is the 3rd day from the eclipse. The 4th day is about the coming of the Antichrist. On the 4th day, the moon moves into the Pleiades, the 7 stars. Wallace, writing to Luciferian Roerich, says this, "Dear Guru, I have been thinking of you holding the casket, the sacred, most precious casket, and I have thought of the new country going forward to meet the 7 stars under the sign of the 3 stars, and I have thought of the admonition, await the stone." The stone they are waiting for is the supernatural leader of the new order of the ages, the one we call the Antichrist. The sacred, most precious casket is the casket of Osiris, which they believe is buried somewhere in the Giza pyramid complex. Revelation 17:8 appears to support this idea of the resurrection of some being who lived, died, and is then resurrected. The beast you saw was, in other words, lived, and is not. He died and went to the pit, and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast, because it was, and is not, and is to come.